Hey everyone, it's Josh, J Vintage on the Minis, Orlando, Florida. This video is just going to go over some VIN tag information as far as removing them, where you can get some sources for nice VINs if you don't have it on the bike. It's up to you. You decide what you're going to do and follow applicable laws. But I'll show you some sources where you can get the VINs remade for you, and just kind of how I use a couple. I'll show you the pipes, a good way to get these things bent appropriately and effectively. Alright, so you might not be able to see it, but it's done. Tape's here to protect you from scratching while you do the file, the flat file. I use a flat file, it's a little jeweler's file, and you can come in here and just get that work down to a flat surface, and take your center punch and give those two a knock, and then you're going to be ready to do your drill. So we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and start drilling. Sorry. Again, it's a 1.70 millimeter drill bit, and that's going to match the new set of rivets that I buy. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on this bit because it's really thin. Just let it do its job. When you're drilling, like I said, it's a double wall, so you're going to end up dropping and then feeling yourself hit another piece of the inner tube of the tubing. So you got to get through that because the rivets that we're going to be putting in are long enough that they'll hit that inner second wall. So you got to make a hole for it to be able to travel through and seat down as far as possible to hold your VIN tag. So we're drilling through both of those tubes. So the tape's removed. Anything that you see here was pre-existing on the tag, but we did a good job of just removing the actual rivet and not damaging anything. So next up, we're going to use some heat, start to break down some like glue on the back side of this tag, and use a little blade to kind of slide in underneath it gently, because we don't want to just pull it, because it can rip. So we're almost through. It's not a race. I didn't use any heat on this one. Actually, I got my father's heat. Actually has my heat gun. So on this example, no heat gun used, but it would help. You can use a hair dryer, blow dryer if you want. Help soften up the glue. But if your tag, you want this blade to go ahead and be able to slide all the way down behind it. So if it's not going all the way yet, don't pull up the tag. We want to break all this glue off. There. Okay. So there you go. That's a safer way to remove it instead of just yanking on it, or you're going to destroy it, trust me. And then I'm going to show you guys how to get these things bent back nicely. The old one and when you buy new VIN tag. Let's talk about getting this these tags correctly bent to fit on these. You can try to, like this one's thin, but the aftermarket ones that you can get are a little thicker aluminum, so they're not as pliable with your fingers. But our goal is to get this to seat really nice and tight and follow the contour of this tube, so that all the glue actually is doing the holding, and the rivets, you know, are they're secondary. Because when you try to use a like a new VIN and you bend it, say you're pushing it on this tube here with your fingers, it's never going to have a great bend, and it's actually going to tend to create a straight line bend instead of a curvature when you do it this way. So, and then the glue was never able to really stick onto the paint itself and hold itself nice and firmly down. You're going to see like air gaps and all sorts of, you know, lifting up. So if we'll look at this paper real quick, those are the, well, where I'm going by is the outer diameter. What I'm going to show you on the paper is the outer diameter, or what did I say, diameter? Yeah, I guess you would say the diameter of the outside of these head tubes on these various bikes. So you got a hardtail Z50, which has a totally different neck design than the later Z50, like a K3 and up, which would be in 1972 and through 1978. So the hardtail 1968 KO through K2, they have a 34.5 millimeter diameter outside of their neck. We're going to use this to create the curvature. Z50 Softail, which is a K3 1972 to 1978, that's a 40.5 millimeter. And then our CT70s are 51.35 millimeters. And those are all rough measurements, but that's enough to get us where we need to go with it. Alright, so we're going to talk about getting these tags bent appropriately based on those measurements I showed you. So instead of going up and buying some steel or non-ferrous metal or something like that from a local steel supplier, I figured it'd be easier for everyone to be able to go up to a Lowe's or Home Depot or any kind of PVC pipe supplier. So these are the tools or the products you're going to need to make the tool, and we'll go over that from a Lowe's perspective and part number. Alright, just from a visual, first up, this comes as an assembly. This is on the Lowe's aisle. All the stuff is in store. So this is a assembly right here that you would get, but we're going to use this part. You can just undo the cap, but the inner diameter of this is going to meet our needs for the 34.5 hardtail steering stem. And then you use this in conjunction, which is a 1-inch PVC pipe. So these two go together. And then we'll move on to the Softail Z50 K3 and up. So then we're going to need to get a 1.5-inch PVC pipe, and then we'll use part of this. We'll cut this 1 inch to work together. So that's going to work on that Softail VIN tag to bend it. And then we need to grab a 2-inch PVC pipe, and then we'll also use a part of this one to do the CT70 bend. So we're on Lowe's.com. This is like the pricing and the part numbers, but if you're doing all the bikes or you want to have the tooling to make all the bend numbers bend appropriately, it's about $38 plus tax. The hardtail coupler is what, almost $12, plus you need that 1 inch, which is another $6. So you're going to be in at about $18 just for the hardtail. If you want to add in to do the Softail, that part's $869, and then if you're doing your CT70, that needed diameter pipe to 2 inches, $11.95. So I mean, you're looking at like $20 if you're just buying it for one style bike for materials, but if you're buying it for all of them, that gets spread across being able to cut these pipes down and making more use out of the stock links. So there's the 3 forming dies on the lower part, and then up there on the top left is all the remaining cuts for if you want to share with a friend and make a couple kits. Alright, so we're back in the house here. These are all the parts that I cut to make the forming dies. And what I did is I lined 2 strips of painter's tape inside each one of these, because these tags are going inside. They face down. Now to properly get these done, you want them embossed. So you can see how those are embossed, and they raised letters, not engraved, that is embossed. So these face down when you're trying to meet the diameters OD of the pipe head tubes. So these face down inside of there, so you want a little soft layer that I use tape that we press up against, okay? And I didn't take any real measurements. I just cut these parts that these are going to go into to at least be as long as the ID tag. So you can see they're probably about 3/4 inch on each side longer than the tag. So we're going to do the first one is the original tag from that H green, emerald green bike that we slowly removed, but it's not perfectly shaped anymore. It's got some bends in it. So we're going to go ahead and use that 2-inch diameter, inner diameter on the PVC that meets with the 2-inch or the 51.35 millimeter measurement, very close to each other. So we'll use that large pipe that we bought, and then we're going to lay the tag inside of it. Alright, and then we go ahead and grab the next smaller size PVC pipe that we cut, and this is going to be a longer cut because we're going to use it as the press die, so we want it to be longer that we can push down while it's inside of this too. Alright, so get your tape facing down towards your flat hard surface that we're going to roll on. Slide in your forming tube next. And then now that we got them both in there and that plate is going to be centered in the inside of this PVC pipe, we're just going to roll it back and forth. Push down really hard, straight down. And you can inspect your curve. So we got, it's a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and do it a little more. And also, if you just have like an edge or something that you're working on this, you can actually use this as this long one as a point of leverage. So you just stick it in just a little bit, and then you can push it, kind of tweak it in like this. You can go down the whole pipe if you want to do this. Kind of get a extra clamping, forming on that ID tag. Just going to work your way up and down if you want to. Just remember to be pressing up against that double layer of tape so it's softer, it doesn't scratch your tag. If you guys can see that, so it's like that is the proper bend right there, and so that's going to sit really nice back on the neck. Alright, so now we'll work on the thicker aftermarket tags. So here's the aftermarket tag. It's flat when you get it. It's got the backing, 3M backing on it with the adhesive. It's been embossed. And remember, this is a CT70, so we're going to go ahead and use the bigger diameter pipe again. I'm going to set it right there in the middle. And use the other pipe. It's going to kind of put a little bit of a pre-bend so these pipes can, there's enough clearance for me to slide this on. Alright, so let's roll this one. You can hear it conforming. And I'm going to use that method that I showed where I just kind of use some leverage and continue to put some pressure on it as I move the pipe down. Gonna do that a few times. That's a perfect arc for it to go on to the neck tag. And again, I can't stress enough, that arc is going to let all this adhesive stick really nice. You're going to have no lift ups, and then you just pen it. So pens are secondary to the actual adhesive holding it on. So these are the new brad pens or rivets or pens or whatever you want to call them. These are a little bit larger than the 1.7 millimeter drill bit that I used. So if you sent your frame out to paint or powder coat, you're going to want to use that drill bit again to go back through the hole. Just make sure that there's no paint or powder that's built up, and reopen it to 1.70 millimeters. And then we're going to hit these in, and I have a punch that has a concave tip on it because these are convex heads on these rivets. So I'm going to use this with the concave thing to hold on nice and nicely onto the top of the head of the rivet, so we don't have any chance of it slipping off and scratching your new ID tag. You might even want to put just a little layer of tape on there and then put it on there so that you're not scratching the top of the brad or rivet. Okay, so let's go ahead and get these on there. Alright, so this is my second time doing this VIN tag here because I got it upside down on the first edit, and a friend of mine messaged me and said, hey, you put it on backwards. So even though I do this all the time, I still make mistakes. But so now that we have this placed, I just put some electrical tape down just to protect the area that I'm going to use my punch. I put a little tape on the end of my punch here, and you're going to use that and gently tap those into place and get a good securement. Alright, so do that for both, and then you can go ahead and remove your tape and inspect your work. This should be a nice, good hold on the frame. So that's going to wrap it up on this VIN tag how-to video. Hopefully you learned how to get your OEM one off safely if you're sending it off to paint or powder coat. Where to acquire a new one, I'll give the link in the summary part of the video. Also link to the PVC pipes that I use through Lowe's. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, guys. More videos to come.